The Italian Mafia boss was sent to kill me, but he chose love. Instead, I have memorized the smell of old paper the way other women memorize the smell of their mother's perfume. Dust, vellum, centuries-old ink that has survived wars, floods, and the slow rot of secrets no one was meant to find. That is the smell of the Vatican's secret archives, and for 11 years, it was the only home I needed. My name is Liliana Ravello. Most people call me Leah. The men who wanted me dead called me nothing at all. To them, I was simply a loose end. I should explain how a quiet archivist ends up with a price on her head. My father, Emilio Ravello, spent the last 20 years of his life as an accountant. Not a prestigious one, not the kind who sits in glass towers and signs off on clean numbers. He sat in the basement offices of old men with older money, and he made their sins disappear into columns and rows, laundered through church endowments, antiquities acquisitions, and charitable foundations that had never once donated to anything charitable. He did this because they made him. And when he decided he was done, when he encoded everything he knew into a set of encrypted ledgers hidden beneath layers of archival notation only someone like me could decode, they made sure he had a very clean accident on the A1 autostrada outside of Florence. I was in Rome the night he died. I did not cry at his funeral. I understand that sounds cold. But grief and I have never been straightforward. I stored it somewhere deep, behind my sternum, where I kept everything that hurt too much to examine. What I did instead was work. I pulled every file he had left me access to. I decoded the notation. I understood what I was holding, and I made the catastrophic mistake of letting someone else understand it too. I trusted the wrong colleague. I showed the wrong fragments to the wrong priest. Within a week, I received a visit from a man I did not know. Smooth-faced, pleasant, the kind of pleasant that has no feeling behind it. He sat across from my desk in the archive reading room, folded his hands, and told me that it would be in my best interest to forget everything my father had ever told me. I smiled. I said, of course. And the moment he left, I began to run. 3 weeks later, I was still running, just more slowly because eventually exhaustion wins. I was in Trastevere on a Tuesday night, leaving a cafe I had started visiting precisely because no one I knew came there. The rain had begun about an hour before, the kind of Roman autumn rain that smells like the Tiber has climbed over itself. I turned into the alley behind the Via della Lungaretta, pulling my coat tighter. I heard nothing, not a single footfall. One moment the alley was empty. The next, I was against the wall. His hand came up beside my face, palm flat on the wet brick. Not touching me. Not yet. Just blocking. A body like a wall itself, broad-shouldered, dark coat, midnight braids loose around his face. Golden light from the string lights above bled into rain. His other hand, and I registered the gun before I registered anything else about him, pressed coldly to the soft underside of my jaw. I looked up. He looked down. I have been afraid many times in my life. This was not fear. This was something older, something that lived below the word fear, in the place where the body simply knows it is standing in front of something apex. His eyes were dark enough to be black. His jaw was sharp. Around his throat, a tattoo, a black dragon, coiling, alive-looking in the flickering gold light. And he looked at me the way no one had ever looked at me, like I was a problem he had already solved, and the solution did not please him. He was supposed to pull the trigger. He did not. That single moment of hesitation, the fraction of a second in which Don Raffaele Ombra Calvetti looked into my eyes and paused, is the reason I am alive to tell you this story. But alive is a complicated word, because what came after that night in the rain was not safety. It was something far more dangerous than a bullet. It was him. If you are already this deep into the dark with me, a quick subscribe keeps the next chapter coming. I promise it only gets worse. In the best possible way. He did not kill me in the alley. What he did instead was step back, just barely, just enough, and say, in a voice that belonged in a confessional or a courtroom, "Walk, don't run. If you run, my man on the roof gets impatient." I walked. He took me to a black car idling at the end of the street, held the door open with the courtesy of a man who had been raised correctly and had since learned to use that courtesy as a weapon. I got in. The door closed. The city slid past the tinted windows like a painting someone was slowly rolling away. No one spoke for 20 minutes. Then we turned through an iron gate I had not seen coming, and we were somewhere that was no longer Rome, or rather, was Rome in its oldest, most private sense. A courtyard. Ancient stone. Climbing vines gone rust-red with October. A house that was not a house but a palazzo that had forgotten what century it was. He brought me to a study on the second floor. High ceilings. One lamp. A desk that had probably heard worse confessions than mine. He sat. He did not offer me a chair. I sat anyway. He opened a folder. Inside that folder was my entire life. Not metaphorically. I mean, my university transcript, my employment record at the Vatican archives. A photograph of me taken, I realized with a slow, cold roll of my stomach, from a distance. At a market, weeks ago. My father's death certificate, a copy of the police report marked incidente, and beneath it all, pages of notation I recognized. My own work, photographed without my knowledge. Liliana Emilia Ravello, he said, born in Florence, mother deceased, father deceased, no siblings, no partner, currently subletting a flat on the Via dei Giubonari under a false name that took my people approximately 4 hours to find. I kept my face still. It is a skill archivists develop, the ability to receive information without showing the weight of it. "You have something that belongs to the Calvetti Syndicate," he said. "I have nothing," I said. "I am a researcher. I handle documents that are hundreds of years old." "You handle documents that are hundreds of years old," he agreed, as though I had confirmed something for him. "Which is exactly how your father hid them so well. He used your archival notation system. The one you developed yourself, which has never been published, which exists nowhere outside of your own working files." He paused. "And your skin." My wrist went cold. I had done it 2 years ago, a small thing, a narrow band of symbols on my inner wrist that my colleagues assumed was decorative, an artist's flourish. Only my father and I knew it was a cipher key, the final cipher key, without which the ledgers were unbreakable. "You knew," I said. "I know everything about the targets I am sent to remove," he said, simply, without cruelty, the way someone might state a weather forecast. The word target sat in the room like a third person. "Then why am I still sitting here?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. The dragon on his throat seemed to shift in the low light. Then he closed the folder, leaned back in his chair, and said something I was not prepared for. "Because the ledgers your father compiled do not only implicate my syndicate, they implicate the men above my syndicate, the commission, men who have the reach to make families disappear, including mine." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Your father was more dangerous than anyone understood, and more careful. He encrypted the final layer specifically so that killing you destroys the only remaining key." I understood then. I was not valuable because I was innocent. I was valuable because I was necessary. The distinction felt important and ugly at the same time. "So I am not a loose end," I said. "I am a hostage." "You are an asset," he said. "For now." There is a version of this story where I asked more questions, where I negotiated, demanded, threatened to destroy everything. But the truth is that I had been running for 3 weeks on almost no sleep. My father was dead, and the man across from me had a gun and had chosen, for reasons I did not yet understand, not to use it. So I sat in the chair in Don Raffaele Calvetti's study, while Rome went on without me outside, and I thought, okay, I am not dead. Start from there. What I did not yet know was everything that lay beneath his calculation, everything that had made him pause in that alley before his rational mind could overrule it, everything the folder in his hands did not explain. I did not know that he had read every page of what my father had written, that he had spent 3 nights in this study alone, going through the files, trying to find a way out of the order he had been given. I did not know that he had recognized my handwriting from a single line. I did not know what that recognition had cost him. He gave me 20 minutes to collect the things from my flat. One of his men stood outside the bathroom door while I changed. Not intrusive, just present. A reminder that freedom of movement was a courtesy being extended, not a right being observed. I packed 1 bag, books, a change of clothes, the small notebook I used to record annotation systems, the photograph of my father from the mantel, the one taken before everything, when he still looked like a man who slept well. The drive to the villa took 2 hours. Florence was behind us, then gone, then the hills swallowed everything and the lights of the road reduced to single threads through the dark. The villa sat on a ridge above a valley I could not name, lit from below by spotlights that made it look like a painting of itself, something by Caravaggio, all contrast and threat. He did not ride with me. He arrived separately. I learned early that Don Calvetti never rode in the same vehicle as anyone he had not personally vetted for a decade or more. A precaution. One of dozens. A woman named Georgia met me at the entrance. Late 50s, precise posture, the expression of someone who has worked for difficult men long enough that very little registers anymore. She showed me to a room on the east wing, large silk curtains, a window that looked over the valley, a cage with an extraordinary view. "The Don will see you at dinner," she said. 8 o'clock. I had 5 hours. I used them the way I use all unexpected time. I worked. I did not have access to the encrypted ledgers. He had made that clear. They would remain in his possession. But I had my memory, which is frankly more dangerous. I sat at the writing desk in my room and began reconstructing everything I could recall from my father's files. Not to hand over, not yet. But because the act of organizing information has always been how I process crisis. By the time I descended to dinner, I had assembled in my mind something like a map, a web of names, accounts, transfers, and the specific antiquities that had served as vehicles for approximately 300 million euros in laundered money over 17 years. I also had something else, a thread that led not to the Calvetti syndicate, but above it, to a man named Vittorio Scarlatti. Raffaele was already seated when I entered the dining room. He stood, automatically, reflexively, the gesture of a man raised with a particular set of manners he has never been able to entirely shed. He was in different clothes, dark shirt, no tie. The braids were pulled back loosely. The dragon tattoo disappeared into his collar. We ate mostly in silence. The food was extraordinary, and I noticed this the way you notice irrelevant things under stress, sharply, as a point of reference. "You decoded more than the primary ledgers," he said midway through the second course. Not a question. "I don't know what you mean." "You went quiet when I mentioned the commission." "You did not go quiet when I mentioned my syndicate." He looked at me across the candlelight. "That tells me you already knew the syndicate was involved. The commission was new information. I set down my fork. Your father, he said, was meticulous. He did not simply document your syndicate's activity. He documented who gave the orders. He built a case, and the man at the top of that case is not from my family. Vittorio Scarlatti, I said. The air in the room changed. Raphael's expression did not move, not a muscle, but something behind his eyes shifted the way a tide shifts, invisible on the surface, total underneath. He looked at me for a long time. How long have you known? Since I decoded the third ledger, about 2 weeks before your man photographed me at the market. And you told no one? I told no one, I confirmed, because everyone I might have told was either already involved or would be dead within a week of knowing. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, almost to himself, Your father raised you well. It was not what I expected him to say. It landed differently than anything else he had said. Not as a tactic, not as an assessment, as something almost like recognition. He raised me to be careful, I said. He didn't know it would need to be this careful. None of us do, Raphael said and looked away. I stayed at the villa that night, and the night after, and the week after that. The cage remained a cage, but its bars were gilded, and its keeper was a more complicated man than I had expected. What I had not expected was the library, 3,000 volumes behind locked glass, the key to which Raphael handed me without comment on the third morning. In case you need to work, he said, which was, I would learn, the closest he typically came to an act of kindness. I started to understand that this man had built walls the same way I had, just with different materials. Comment question. If you found yourself trapped in a beautiful villa by the most dangerous man in Italy, would you look for a way out, or would you look for a way in? Tell me below. On the 5th day, I met Marco Bellanti. He came to the villa on a Wednesday morning, unannounced, or rather, announced only to people whose announcements mattered. He was tall, angular, with the kind of face that has been handsome so long, it has started to become architectural. Silver threading the dark hair at his temples, a suit too well cut to be comfortable. He was what my father would have called a man of surfaces. Everything polished, nothing warm. They called him Il Corvo, the Crow. Raphael's underboss of 9 years. I was in the library when he arrived. I heard them in the hallway first. The shift in George's posture, even in her footsteps. The way the house seemed to tighten the way old buildings do when something moves through them that they do not entirely welcome. The commission is asking questions, Bellanti said. I was not meant to hear this. The library door was not quite closed. About the Ravello woman, they know the order was not carried out. Raphael's response was too low to catch. You're out of time, Raphael. A week, maybe less. If you cannot give them a resolution, they will send someone else to deliver one, and they will not be as selective about collateral. I pressed my back against the bookshelf and breathed carefully. That evening, Raphael came to the library. He did not pretend he had not been elsewhere. He sat in the chair across from where I was working, poured 2 glasses of wine from the bottle he'd carried in, and set one at the edge of my desk. The man you heard this morning, he said. I heard nothing, I said. Don't do that. You're too intelligent for that reflex, and it wastes both our time. He drank. Marco Bellanti has been my underboss since I was 26 years old. He was present at my father's death. He is the man who taught me the most important parts of this business. And? I asked, because clearly there was an and. And 3 months ago, I intercepted a communication that suggested he has been sharing operational information with Scarlatti's network for at least 18 months. I looked up from my work. You already know, I said. You already know your underboss is a traitor. I know what I can prove is insufficient, he said. What your father compiled, if it contains what I believe it contains, provides the evidentiary link I cannot manufacture myself. Scarlatti's money moving through the same church accounts that Belanti nominally oversees. A paper trail that places them in financial partnership before Scarlatti had any official connection to our operations. I understood the shape of it now. He had not kept me alive purely as an asset. He had kept me alive because the threat I represented was the same threat that could protect him, if deployed correctly. We were using each other. The acknowledgement of this felt oddly clarifying. I need access to the primary ledgers, I said. I know. And I need 48 hours with them and your full archive of accounts from the period in question. I can arrange that. In exchange, I said, I want something. He looked at me carefully. Name it. My father's car accident. I want to know exactly who ordered it, not which family, not which network, who, by name. He was quiet for a long time. The lamplight was amber. The valley was black outside the window. Vittorio Scarlatti, he said at last. The order came from Scarlatti. Your father had approached a contact inside the magistratura. He was attempting to build a case for state protection. Scarlatti learned of it and moved first. I had known this, or suspected it, for months. Hearing it said plainly was different. I put my pen down. I took the wine glass he had set at the edge of my desk. I drank. Then we want the same thing, I said. He looked at me the way he had looked at me in the alley, that same arrested quality, like something had moved in the dark behind his eyes. We want adjacent things, he said. A correction, but not a dismissal. In the days that followed, I worked. Raphael gave me the ledgers, the account records, the correspondence logs going back 7 years. I worked at the library desk from before dawn until my eyes stopped tracking. He brought food he said Georgia had prepared, though I noticed twice that the plating was different from Georgia's usual. He did not hover. But he came to the library, every evening reliably, with wine and a book he opened but never seemed to read. I told myself this was surveillance. I think we both knew it was something else. On the 9th night, we fought. It was the first real fight, not the careful tactical exchanges we had been having, not the negotiations dressed as conversation. This was something rawer, something that had been building since the alley. It started over the Meridian account. I had found a notation error in the secondary ledger. Not an error, I realized, but a deliberate misdirection. Someone had adjusted the Meridian transfers to implicate a third party, a smaller family with no real connection to the primary network. A falsification layered so skillfully into the authentic records that it would hold up to most scrutiny. Most scrutiny, not mine. I brought it to Raphael after dinner and laid it on the desk in front of him. This is fabricated, I said. The Meridian entries are fabricated. Someone added them after the fact to point away from, I traced the line, from an account that roots directly back to this villa's estate records. He looked at the page for a long time. I know, he said. You know. It was done before I took leadership of the syndicate. My father authorized the falsification. The family they pointed it toward. He stopped. They were destroyed, I finished. Based on false records, 3 people went to prison. 2, he said. 1 did not survive to reach prison. I stood up. I needed to move. The room had become too small. Then your clean hands theory, I said, hearing the edge in my own voice. The idea that you are somehow different from Scarlatti, that keeping me alive makes you something other than what you are. I have never claimed clean hands." He said it quietly, and the quiet of it was worse than anger would have been. I have never in this conversation pretended to be innocent. What I am is useful to you, and what you are is necessary to me. That is not a moral framework. It is a practical one. And when it stops being practical? I asked. When the ledgers are decoded and the case is built and Scarlatti is whatever you plan to make him, what happens to me? He stood then, and the room was not large enough to make distance between us that meant anything. What do you want to happen to you, Liliana? It was the first time he had used my full name. Not Ravello, not the asset. Liliana. It came out of him differently, unguarded, almost involuntary. I want to be able to go back, I said. I want my father's name cleared. I want the records corrected, and I want to walk out of whatever this is when it's over. The first two things I can give you, he said. And the third? He was very close now, I realized. The conversation had moved us toward each other the way a current moves objects, without visible force, against the will of everyone involved. The third, he said, depends on what you want to walk back to. I should have stepped back. I registered this clearly, the way I register most things clearly, even when my body is doing something my brain has not approved. I did not step back. He was looking at me the way he had in the alley, that arrested, suspended look, like gravity had stopped in a small radius around us. His hand came up and I thought, the gun. This is how it ends. And then his fingers brushed the side of my face, not possessive, almost tentative, like a man who has forgotten how to do something gentle and is frightened of doing it wrong. I leaned into it, against every instruction I had ever given myself. We did not kiss, not then. We stood in the amber light of his study with his hand cradling my face, and my hands somewhere on the front of his shirt, gripping the fabric like a question I hadn't finished asking, and something between us shifted, a weight redistributed, a balance broken and remade into something less stable but more honest. This, I said quietly, complicates everything. Yes, he agreed and did not move away. What followed was not a love scene from any story I had been told. It was not dramatic. It was not clean. It was the kind of thing that happens when two people have been fighting gravity for too long, and gravity wins. Tentative, and then not tentative. Careful, and then not careful. The sort of intimacy that feels less like a beginning and more like an admission. Afterward, I lay beside him in the dark and thought, I am inside the story now. There is no outside left. He was quiet for a long time. Then, you should have the cipher key moved, the tattoo. Why? Because Scarlatti knows about it, and he will be less patient than I was in the alley. This was the most romantic thing he had said to me. I recognized this even as it was happening. You're telling me to protect myself. I am telling you, he said, that I would prefer it. I laughed for the first time in weeks, genuinely, at the ceiling of his villa in the dark hills above Florence, with everything still broken and nothing yet resolved, and a man beside me who was trying to learn the syntax of care in a language he had mostly spent his life unlearning. Outside, somewhere below, the valley was very quiet, and in the morning, everything I had built in the library was going to matter enormously. But that was morning. This was still the night. He told me about the dragon the next morning. We were on the balcony before the household woke, the valley below us gray and silver, steam from his coffee dissolving into the cold October air. He was leaning on the railing, and I was watching the way the tattoo moved when he breathed, the way the ink seemed to have its own topography above his collarbone. My father gave it to me, he said without turning. when I was 15. He said, "The Calvetti family is the dragon. It lives in the dark. It moves without being seen. It strikes once precisely, and it does not explain itself." "That's not a gift," I said. "That's a sentence." He turned then and looked at me with something in his face that was not quite a smile and not quite pain, somewhere on the line between them. "He was a man who built things out of people," Raffaele said. "My mother was gone by the time I was 8. He raised me and my brother Emilio." He stopped. I waited. "My brother refused the life. He was the smarter one in that regard. He left when I was 17. I have not spoken to him in 14 years. Where is he?" "Somewhere he is safe. That's all I know, and all I will allow myself to know." I understood this, the protective severance, the act of love that looks like abandonment. My father had done something similar, routing me into the archives, giving me a life of legitimate work and clean hands, keeping his world as far from mine as the distance between Florence and Rome could manage, until it hadn't been far enough. "What was it like?" I asked. "The first time?" He knew what I meant. He looked back at the valley. 19, he said. I was 19, a man who had tried to have my father killed. My father pointed, and I did what was expected. He paused. I was sick for a week afterward. My father said the sickness was proof that there was still something weak in me that needed removing. He was wrong, I said. He was wrong about a great many things. He said it simply, not bitterly, like a fact filed away long ago. He is dead now. I became Ombra. I took the name because he gave it to me as a diminishment, the shadow behind the real power, never the thing itself. I decided to make it literal. And now you are the thing itself. And now I am the thing itself, he confirmed. And the commission that sanctioned my rise now wants me to disappear a woman who threatens to expose the rot in their structure, because the rot is profitable, and they have no other architecture to live in. I set my coffee down on the balcony railing. They'll move against you when the Scarlatti evidence surfaces, I said. Even if it implicates him, it implicates the whole system. They cannot let a document that damaging exist. No, he agreed. They cannot. So the evidence cannot only go to you, it needs to go somewhere they cannot reach. He turned slowly. The look on his face was the same look I had seen the first night in the study. That arrested quality, like I had said the thing he had been working toward and had not quite gotten to. The magistratura contact my father tried to use, I said. He trusted the wrong one. But the right one exists. There is a magistrate in Rome who has been building a case against Scarlatti independently for 3 years. I found a reference to him in the secondary files. He has been careful enough to survive this long, which means he is either very good or very well protected. Or both, Raphael said. Or both. If the Calvetti ledgers reach him in authenticated form, with my professional attestation as an archival expert, the kind of attestation that carries provenance weight in court, Scarlatti does not just lose power, he goes to prison, and the commission loses their most profitable arrangement and gains a target on their backs that makes me look like an inconvenience. They will still come for us, Raphael said. Yes, but they will come for us as men defending themselves, not men cleaning house. The dynamic shifts. He was quiet for a long time. The sun had started to clear the ridgeline behind us. The valley went from silver to gold. There is no version of this, he said finally, where you are not in danger for the foreseeable future. I have been in danger since my father drove onto the autostrada, I said. The question was never whether I would be safe. The question was whether the danger would mean something. He looked at me with an expression I could not catalog. Not desire, not calculation. Something older and quieter. Something that looked, in the growing morning light, startlingly like respect. "I need to make a call," he said. "I know. And you need to finish the authentication document." "I know that too." He reached out, brief, deliberate, and ran his thumb along my jaw. It was not a romantic gesture. It was a serious one. The gesture of a man measuring something he intends to protect. Then he went inside to make his call, and I went to the library to finish dismantling Vittorio Scarlatti. Comment question. Leah just handed Raphael the weapon that could save them both, using her archival mind, not a gun. Did you see that coming? What do you think happens when Belanti finds out? Drop your predictions below. I finished the authentication document in 31 hours. 31 hours of cross-referencing, marginal notation, chain of provenance documentation, and the particular kind of quiet fury that makes precision work feel like violence. I built a case that would hold up in any court in Italy and in several outside it. I had my professional seal, kept in the notebook I had packed from the flat, and I used it. My attestation. My expertise. 11 years in the Vatican archives, the most credentialed document authentication practice in the world, behind my name. It was the most powerful thing I owned. Raphael read every page. He sat across from me in the library while I watched his expression, which remained controlled and informative in the way a sealed room is informative. You know there is something inside. You cannot quite see it. When he finished, he set the document down and said, "This is the end of Vittorio Scarlatti." "That is the intention," I said, "and of Marco Belanti." I watched his face. "Your underboss is on 4 of those transfer chains. His signature of approval appears on the Meridian account adjustments. The falsified entries I found. He authorized them. On behalf of Scarlatti." Raphael was very still. 18 months, I said. "The communication intercepts you had, combined with what I've documented. He has been delivering your operational intelligence to Scarlatti for at least 18 months, possibly more. Possibly from the beginning of Scarlatti's current campaign." "The beginning of Scarlatti's campaign," he said slowly, "was the move against my father's alliance with the Southern families. 3 years ago, the meeting that was ambushed." He stopped. "2 men died at that meeting," I said. I had found this in the records. Men who had been loyal to your family for decades. My father survived because he left early, a stomach complaint. His voice was flat as stone. Fate, we thought. Luck. "Not luck," I said. "Belanti knew your father would leave early because Belanti arranged the stomach complaint. He added something to the wine at the pre-meeting dinner. Enough to inconvenience, not enough to harm. Enough to save Calvetti Sr. and preserve his own position, while delivering everyone else." Silence. Long and absolute. "He saved my father's life," Raphael said, "so that my father would owe him, so that I would inherit a trust that had been engineered." "Yes." He stood. He walked to the window. For a long moment he stood with his back to me, and I watched the tension in his shoulders, the kind that comes from holding something that is too large for the body to process cleanly. "I trusted that man with my life," he said, "not to me, to the window, to the valley, to some version of himself that had not yet received this information." "I know," I said. He turned back. His face was composed again, the ombre face, the face that had been trained since 15 to reveal nothing. But underneath it, behind the dark eyes, I could see it. The specific devastation of betrayal by someone chosen, someone loved, even if not named as such. He needs to not know, I said. Not yet. If Belanti knows his position is compromised, he will move immediately. He will warn Scarlatti, and Scarlatti will move against us before the document reaches the magistrate. Agreed. How long until your contact in Rome can arrange the handoff? 48 hours. The magistrate has a secure channel. It was used before, by a different source. He knows to expect contact. Then 48 hours of normal, I said. Belanti attends his usual meetings. You conduct business as usual. Nothing changes until the document is out of reach. Raphael nodded slowly. Then, there's a problem. Tell me. Tonight is the quarterly accounts meeting. All senior members attend. Belanti will be in this house. He looked at me steadily. And you will need to be present. I had not expected this. I am not a member of your organization. No, but you are a guest under my protection, and the commission has asked for a status report on the situation. If you are not seen, the assumption will be that you are already gone, that the order has been executed and the evidence destroyed. And if I am seen, then Belanti will report to Scarlatti that you are alive and in my protection, and that I have not complied, which he would report anyway, but not for another 48 hours. He paused. This way, we buy the same amount of time, and I do not have to lie to the commission about your whereabouts. I simply have to present you as something other than what you are. What am I then? I asked. For tonight, he said, you are under consideration, an asset being evaluated for long-term use. A pause. The faintest edge of something in his voice that was not entirely strategic. You are mine, temporarily, on paper. On paper, I repeated. On paper, he confirmed and looked away. I thought about the morning on the balcony, the hand along my jaw, the 31 hours I had spent building the weapon that could save his life and mine. Fine, I said. Tell me what to wear. They arrived in pairs, in black cars, between 7 and 8 o'clock. 7 senior members of the Nuova Ombra syndicate, plus Belanti, plus 2 observers from what Raphael described only as the Eastern Network, men I was not to address directly and was not to appear curious about. I stood at Raphael's right side in the entrance hall and felt the weight of every set of eyes that passed over me. They all looked. None of them spoke to me. This was information. Belanti arrived last. He moved through the entrance hall with the ease of a man who has been welcome in this house for a long time. Proprietorial, almost, in a way that made my skin tighten. He greeted Raphael with an embrace, the kind between men who have survived things together, and I watched Raphael receive it without stiffening, without any visible register of what he now knew. He was extraordinary. I had known he was controlled, but this was something else. This was the discipline of a man who has built a second self so complete that the first one can hide entirely inside it. Belanti's eyes found me. The archivist, he said pleasantly, still with us. Still useful, Raphael said before I could answer. His hand found the small of my back, light, brief, unmistakable. A signal, a claim. Useful in what regard? Belanti's voice was still pleasant. Everything about him was pleasant, in the way that well-maintained machinery is pleasant. Functioning smoothly, giving nothing away, built to outlast its operators. The Scarlatti accounts, Raphael said. She has found notations in the church archive records that corroborate the transfer chains we have been unable to verify independently. She is being retained to complete the analysis. A beat. Scarlatti, Belanti said. I wasn't aware we were building a case against Scarlatti. There are things I don't share in advance, Raphael said, until I am certain of the ground. A pause. Calibrated. You understand. The dinner that followed was the most dangerous meal I have ever sat through. I ate calmly. I listened carefully. I spoke twice. Once when asked a direct question about Vatican Archive cataloging procedure, once to request the salt, and I watched Marco Belanti across the long table, watched the fine machinery of his face processing information, searching, recalibrating. He knew something was off. I could see it in the way his eyes moved to Raphael and away, to me and away, to the Eastern Network men and away. A man reading a room and finding a gap he cannot locate. After dinner, the formal meeting was held in the study. Men only, which suited me perfectly. I went to the library. I sat. I did not work. I listened. The library shared a wall with the study. The wall was thick, but the house was old, and old houses conduct sound the way old cities conduct rumor, imperfectly but inevitably. I could not hear words. I could hear the shape of the conversation, normal, then extended, then an interval of silence that lasted several minutes and felt like pressure. When the cars began to leave at 11, I counted engines. 7, 8, 9, Belanti's last. Then Raphael was in the library doorway. "It's done," he said. "He knows something is wrong." "He knows something is wrong," Raphael confirmed. "He doesn't know what. But he moved up his timeline. I could see it in how he ended the meeting. He was efficient. He wanted out of this room. He is going to contact Scarlatti tonight. Yes. Then we have less than 48 hours. I closed the book I had not been reading. Is the document secure? Encrypted and transmitted to the magistrate's secure channel 40 minutes ago. He will have it by morning. He crossed the room and sat in the chair across from me, the chair that had become his chair over the course of 10 days, in the same way that certain things become yours, not through possession, but through repetition. "Then there is nothing to do but wait," I said. "There is one more thing," he said. He reached inside his jacket and placed a small object on the desk between us. A key, old, ornate, the kind cut for a specific door in a specific house. "What is this?" "The gate key for the East Garden. It exits onto a road that connects to the main Via Cassia within a kilometer." He looked at me steadily. "I am not telling you this as an escape route. I am telling you this because if something goes wrong in the next 12 hours before our people are in position, I need you to be able to move without waiting for me." I looked at the key for a long moment. "You're not giving this to me out of strategy," I said. "No," he said. "Raphael." His name in my mouth simply, without title or deflection. Something crossed his face, naked, brief, the kind of expression that appears only when a person's control is operating at maximum capacity, and a small thing gets through anyway. "Take the key," he said. I took it. I also took his hand, which was resting on the edge of the desk, and held it for a moment, not tenderly, not dramatically. The way you hold something you are not prepared to lose. He turned his hand over and held mine back. Outside, somewhere on the road below the ridge, a car engine faded toward Rome. Belanti, moving toward his own ending, not yet knowing it, Scarlatti moved at dawn. I was awake. I had not slept. The first sound was wrong. Not the household, not the usual rhythm of Georgia beginning her morning in the kitchen. A vehicle on the perimeter road, engine cut early. Then the specific quiet of people who have practiced moving without sound. I was out of the bed and at the door before I had finished thinking the word wrong. Raphael was already in the corridor. He saw me, and something in his face resolved. Not relief, exactly, but its operational equivalent. "East Garden," he said. "Now." "What about, my people are on the grounds. This was anticipated. Go." And then quieter. "Please." I went. I took the key from the desk. I took the authenticated document copies. I had made 3. One transmitted to the magistrate, one in a sealed envelope addressed to a journalist contact I had trusted for years, and one on my person at all times for the past 48 hours. The East Garden was cold and dark and beautiful. October roses, past their prime, exhaling the last of their scent into the pre-dawn air. I moved through them to the gate. The key turned without resistance, and then I was on the road below and walking fast in the direction of the Via Cassia. Behind me, I heard it, brief and distant, the controlled percussion of men being removed from positions they had taken. Not a battle, something more surgical than that. Raphael's security, responding to a threat they had been positioned to meet. I did not run. Running is conspicuous. I walked with the certainty of someone who belongs on the road she is on, and within 20 minutes I had reached a point where a car was waiting. Not one of Raphael's cars. One I had arranged 2 days prior, through a channel he did not know about, a contact inside the Vatican transport network, an old colleague who owed me a favor I had never called in. I had not told Raphael about this. I had thought about whether I should. But the truth was that I did not yet know, in the pre-dawn dark of the 9th day, whether he and I would both walk out of this. And if he did not, I needed to be somewhere the commission could not reach. I needed to be the delivery mechanism for everything my father had built. Not dependent on any man's survival, including the one I had started to trust more than I had trusted anyone in years. My father had taught me, build redundancies, always. The car took me to Rome. I was in the magistrate's office, a carefully neutral location, not a courthouse, an office above a pharmacy near the Campo dei Fiori, by 9 in the morning. Magistrate Adriano Conti was 62 years old, thin as a blade, with the air of a man who has been patient long enough to become dangerous. He read my attestation document with the focus of someone who has spent a career learning to distinguish the authentic from the manufactured. When he finished, he looked up at me. "This is sufficient," he said. "More than sufficient. We will have Scarlatti's accounts frozen by end of business today, and an arrest warrant issued before the week is out." He paused. "You understand that this does not keep you safe." "I understand that it makes me less of a target," I said. "Killing me now accomplishes nothing. The evidence is delivered, witnessed, lodged in a system they cannot reach. I become a liability rather than an asset to remove." "Yes," he said. "That is the theory." "I find theory generally holds," I said, "when you have prepared the conditions correctly." He almost smiled. "Your father said something similar to me once, a long time ago." I went still. "He came to me 3 years ago," Conti said, "before his death. He told me about the ledgers. He told me they would eventually surface, and that when they did, there would be a woman, his daughter, he said, who could authenticate them. He asked me to wait." A pause. I waited. I had prepared for many things. I had not prepared for this. The grief I had stored behind my sternum since the night my phone rang with news of a car accident on the A1 moved through me all at once. Quick, clean, devastating. I breathed through it. I did not look away from Conti's face. "He knew," I said. "He knew he would not be the one to deliver it. He trusted you to be. He was right to." I left the magistrate's office at 10:10. I sat on a bench near the Campo dei Fiori with my eyes on the morning market and my heart in a state I did not have words for. The grief was real. Beneath it was something else. Not comfort, exactly. more like completion, like the last piece of a cipher clicking into alignment. My phone rang at 10:45. "Where are you?" Raphael's voice, controlled, but the control was working harder than usual. "Campo dei Fiori," I said. "The bench near the flower stalls." A pause. "The car that picked you up on the Via Cassia. You arranged that yourself." "Yes." Another pause. Longer. "Good," he said. I had expected anger. The absence of it told me something about the man he was, or was becoming. Something about what it meant to him that I had built my own redundancy, that I had not simply trusted his plan and waited. "Scarlatti?" I asked. "In custody as of an hour ago. The warrant moved faster than anyone anticipated. Conti has allies I was not fully aware of." A breath. Belanti is handled." I did not ask what handled meant. Some questions are for daylight, and some are not. "Are you hurt?" I asked. "No." "Are your men?" "Minor injuries, nothing permanent." A pause. "Leah?" "Yes." "Stay where you are." He came to the Campo dei Fiori himself. No security, or rather, security at a distance that was politely invisible. He walked across the square in the October morning light, braids loose, the dragon at his throat, the long black coat, the face that moved through crowds by virtue of something absolute in its bearing, and sat beside me on the bench. We sat for a moment in silence. "The commission will reconsider their position," he said. "With Scarlatti gone and the ledgers in the magistrate's hands, the calculation changes. They can threaten the situation or they can absorb it. My read is they will absorb it. The exposure risk is now too high for direct action." "And you?" I asked. "I am still the Don," he said. "The syndicate is intact. Belanti's position will be filled. The Eastern Network was not involved in Scarlatti's play. They are, in fact, relieved." He looked at me. "I am also the man who failed to execute the order I was given, protected a witness, and handed documented evidence to a magistrate. The commission will never fully trust me again. Does that matter?" "It matters less than I expected it to," he said. He was quiet for a moment. "I have been deciding who I am for a long time. Ombra is a name. It is not a verdict." I looked at him in the morning light, the dragon and the braids and the jaw that could have been carved, and the eyes that were trying, visibly trying, to be something other than sealed. "What do you want?" I asked. It was the question he had asked me 9 days ago in his study. I gave it back. "I want you to be able to walk," he said, "freely. Not because a key was given to you, but because there is nothing left to run from." "I'm not running," I said. "I know." He reached out and took my hand, not briefly this time, not tentatively, deliberate. "That is what concerns me." I laughed. Around us, Rome was being its inexhaustible self. The market vendors calling out, the pigeons asserting their territorial rights over the cobblestones, the particular quality of morning light in October that belongs only to this city and explains why people have always been willing to do dangerous things to stay in it. My father had walked these stones. He had known they would lead here, not to his survival, but to mine, to this morning, to the cipher completed. I thought, "Tu sei la mia redenzione." I did not say it. Some things do not need to be said to be true. I held Raffaele Calvetti's hand in the Campo dei Fiori, while the city went on around us, and I thought about what it meant to be the person who walks into the archive and decodes what the old men tried to bury. What it meant to be my father's daughter, and an archivist, and a woman who had survived the alley in Trastevere, not because of luck, but because of what she was, what she had always been. The ledgers were delivered. Scarlatti was finished. Belanti was handled. my father's name would be cleared, and the man beside me, the one sent to erase me, the one who had paused in a rain-soaked alley and found something in my face he did not know how to be finished with, was, improbably, irreversibly, here. Not clean, not uncomplicated, not the man from any story I had ever read in the archives. Mine. And that is where I will leave you for now. In the Campo dei Fiori. October light, a bench between a man who chose not to pull the trigger and a woman who spent 31 hours building the weapon that ended the empire threatening them both. Liliana Ravello, the archivist who decoded her father's last gift. Raffaele Ombra Calveri, the shadow who learned that shadows can choose what they fall on. This is what I love about this kind of story. It is not a rescue. It is not a woman waiting for the dangerous man to decide her fate. It is two people, both shaped by grief and old violence, finding that their particular skills and their particular damage happen to fit. The way two fragments of a broken cipher key fit. The monster did not save the maiden. The maiden decoded the cipher. And the monster stood beside her while she did. If this story lived inside your chest, the way it lived inside mine while I built it, if you found yourself choosing the bench, the morning, the hand held in October light, then you already know what to do. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Tell me. Was it Belanti's betrayal that hit hardest, or the moment Leah arranged her own car without telling Raffaele? Tell me what broke open for you. The dark is always open. Come back in.